Week 5 is here, and we are so excited to have you guys join us for another week on the Full Ascent podcast. We are actually discussing another conference talk this week, and I kind of love it because for me, I think it builds upon what we discussed last week. Obviously, talking about high performance habits, that's why we're here. We're kind of bridging that gap between high performance habits and growing ourselves spiritually. I'm your host, Andrew Leonard.
And I'm Dr. Mark Leonard, also known as Dr. Dad to Andrew.
I'm sorry, you guys. He's been dad my whole life, and there's no way I'm about to change that. Funny enough, my daughter last night we're getting ready to take her to cheer, and she listened to the first couple minutes of our podcast, and she was kind of quoting it, but didn't want to say my name because I'm dad, and she's like, I won't ever say anything other than dad. So she said Dandrew because she was like, it was close enough that I wasn't saying your name, and I was like, thanks, honey, that's great.
That's so funny. I love that.
Yeah. So, you guys, we are discussing the talk, Know Who You Really Are from Elder Eyre. I thought this was an interesting one. I'm curious to see where it goes today. But what are your initial thoughts?
Well, I've got my notes, I've got my thoughts wrapped up, but I'm also really looking forward to exploring this and how it will interlace with leadership and personal development. I think this is a really seminal talk. I've never even heard of Elder Brick Eyre before. Uh,
Yeah.
the guy's got a great first name, B-R-I-K. That's a strong name. That is amazing. And talking about a strong message, so powerful.
Yeah, I think what's really cool about it, just in the intro, just the little snippet at the intro, it says, regardless of where we are on our path of discipleship, our lives will fundamentally change if we better understand who we really are. I love that because I think before we can sit here and try and grow and become these incredible, you know, athletes or entrepreneurs or moms or whatever it is that we're trying to work towards, before we can do that, we really have to have that fundamental know who you really are. Last week, I discussed those buzzwords that are really popular right now, clarity being a really big one. But guess what? This is about clarity to me.
It is. And I want to bring up a quote that I heard, and I wish I could remember his first and last name. He's known as the hip hop preacher, Eric. Wow, what is his name? Eric Thomas. There it is. E.T., the hip hop preacher. And I was at a conference and he was one of the speakers. And as he's getting up, he is full of energy and life and excitement. And he said, so many of you here are striving to become millionaires, striving to really change that destiny. But how many of you are millionaire fathers? How many of you are millionaire husbands or wives? I thought, whoa, talking about shifting identity. Millionaire, great. I been there, done that. It's exciting. But you know what's more exciting? Being a millionaire dad. You know what's more exciting is taking my wife and being an absolute millionaire husband. I love taking her on a date and wowing her because my identity is not how many zeros are in my bank account. My identity is here to be a husband, a father, and a son of God.
That reminds me of, there was a guy I spent some time chatting with and working with a little bit about 3 years ago. He spent a lot of his life from the time he was a young teenager. I mean, he was in foster care, and then even just from the time he was 13, 14 years old, he was locked up. And then he spent a lot of time locked up between then until he was in his 30s when we met. I mean, most of that time, it was only a couple years of time that he wasn't, like, added up only a couple years of him not being locked up. And finally, at the time that we were talking, he's like, you know what? I had to come to the realization that that wasn't being a man. He's like, I grew up in the gang life. I grew up, part of this gang, taking this time to, I thought I was tough. I thought I was a man because I looked really good. He worked out a lot, right? What else do you do when you're in jail? He worked out a lot. So he looked good. He was funny. He was part of this gang. So, all these activities made a lot of money in the stuff that he was doing there. And he's like, it kind of hit me one day that I had to realize that what was really being a man, what was being a man was being home with my kids. That's where I wanted to be, was at home with them. And I think that's really cool. If we can get to that realization that one, we're sons or daughters of God, that is our identity, that is our purpose, that is who we are. If it starts there, and then grows from there to help us understand, what is our purpose in life? What is the path we're supposed to take? Who do we want to be? And does it align with my purpose as a son of God? All it does is just help you, when you find that clarity that I that we were saying, when you find that, all you can go, the only place you can go is up from there.
When you understand who you really are as a son or daughter of a heavenly father, and it has the power to change how you view other people. Suddenly, when you're really upset with an employee, you're not walking in there out of the anger or the frustration because of something they did or didn't do. You can begin to approach a conversation with, before I have this conversation with them, before I bring up my point, let me remind myself that this is an individual. This is a person. This is a son or daughter of God. How would he want me to treat them? It changes very, very quickly. And we get out of our reactionary state and into an intentional state. If all we do is react, then we're being acted upon. But as soon as we act, as soon as we are intentional, as soon as we decide and we recognize, and Susan H. Porter, she said, when you know and understand how completely you are loved as a child of God, it changes everything. That changes how we view other people. If we truly remember that,
I love that because it really comes back to the beginning of the talk here from Elder Eyre. He discusses this experience his daughter had on her mission, where she truly felt like, she was doing the right thing, pulling out her scriptures. She shows up, this lady's just distraught because her whole life is falling apart. And the daughter starts going to her scriptures, what do I say? What do I say? And she said that she had this moment where she just went, what am I doing? And she put her scriptures down and she comforted the lady. She was there for her. She helped take care of her. And then when they got through the moment, she was able to pull her scriptures back out and give her some words of encouragement. And I think that's really cool because I'd say that it's so easy to get caught up in this, what are the right words that I need to give this person? I had this morning. My wife was struggling with a couple things that were going on in our lives right now, just kind of venting some frustration. And I kept throwing out these solutions. Oh, hey, well, what about this? Oh, hey, what about that? And, at some point, I'm so grateful she is patient with me. At some point, she just was able to say, Andrew, this is not what I'm needing. I'm just like, I'm not okay, and it's okay to not be okay. Those weren't her exact words, but that's pretty much what she was getting at. And I truly had to take a step back and go, goodness, I don't need to have the right answer right now. I just needed to love her and take care of her and think about her, the way God would think about her. God, as her father, would just want to be there for her, would want to care for her, and then would want to be able to give her some advice later on if she wants it. We'll see. But all I needed to do was be there for her. And I think that, if we can perfect that skill right there of showing up for people, being there for them, whatever that looks like, our relationships just improve so much.
most people want to have one of the following: they want to be heard, they want to be valued, they want to be respected, or they want to be understood. But almost all of those starts with the very first one. They want to be heard.
Yeah.
They don't want a problem solved. They want someone to hear them in their problem. And as husbands, we're so quick to go, honey, if you did this, this, and this, it would solve all of that. I made that mistake earlier in my marriage where I thought when she brought up some of her struggles, she was asking me to solve it. And like a great wife, and thankfully I was striving to be a better husband, when she said, I just need you to listen. Don't solve this. Don't solve this. And I just needed to listen. From that, there were multiple times, actually for several years, that she would bring up something and I would ask, what do you need from me? Do you need me to hear you or do you want me to solve this? I just need you to hear me. Great. I'm here. And I listen. She didn't need me to solve. Now we actually get to the front of the conversation. She goes, can you help me solve this? Right. Okay. Boom. Now I know what she needs. But in the process of knowing that she needed a solution, she still needed to be heard. Most people need to be heard. And again, if we're going back to know who you really are, most people need to be heard. And if you think about it, there are really only two voices that we tend to hear. There are only two voices. The first is, I love you, I hear you, I value you, I respect you. The second is probably what so many people are struggling with. And I think it's because of our fallen nature. While our Heavenly Father consistently and lovingly reminds us that we are His children, the adversary will always try to label us by our weaknesses. See, if we're listening to someone, we're not labeling. Satan wants to label, and he wants to tell us, you're not tall enough, smart enough, pretty enough, etc. He wants to label you as your weakness. And then he begins to tell you, well, here's the solution. Be alone. That's when he gets you. As soon
Yeah.
as you're alone.
Oh my goodness. It's so easy to fall into that trap of self-deprecation, right? I mean, it's so easy to sit here and be like, "Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not, I'm not whatever it might be." The interesting thing that I thought of when I was reading this though is it's not always those big ones, right? Yeah, I could get caught with sitting here feeling like I'm not good enough or something. But what about the little times? Like the words we say are so important. The words we say to ourselves are crazy important. So what about those times that I'm so sorry I made that mistake? I'm just an idiot sometimes. Right? Like it's something so simple, and most of us mean it just this light little, oh, I'm stupid, no biggie. But it's not that small. Because when you start talking about yourself that way, even in that little instance, even that tiny little thing, it builds so much. And your brain rewires itself to say, "Oh, hey, I'm not good. Oh, hey, I am stupid. Oh, hey, I am an idiot." And so it's so important that we tell ourselves the right words so that we're not running into that situation over and over. We all have this critic in our head, right? We all have the critic. And being able to crush that is so incredibly important.
Yes, 100%. It's not just important. If you learn how to crush your inner critic, it changes everything because now you're looking through the lens that Heavenly Father sees you. You know who you really are. As soon as you go into that critic thinking, victim mode mentality, as soon as you go into an adversarial relationship, oh, it's not me, it's them, right? As soon as you go into all of those things, look at that idiot just cut me off in traffic. I can't believe my employee just did that. How could my boss even possibly understand? Right? All of these things that are so common in language and in conversation are not just expressed outwardly, we hear them. And the more we hear that, the more we wire our brain to see that negative.
And not only do we rewire our brain to see that negative, obviously not on purpose, none of us want to be that way, but it infiltrates every part of our lives. Like I've noticed that when I mean, just the other day, oh my goodness, this jerk driving a WRX STI, and you just know what kind of person he is just from his car. No, I'm just kidding. So this jerk, okay, he didn't start off as a jerk. We were at a red light and he was sitting on his phone right in front of me and he wasn't going, but all the cars in front of him start to go and they get a good like 7, 8 car lengths away. Like, yeah, I waited to honk, but I give him a little one of those, right? Just a little honk. And this guy starts going at 5 miles an hour. So I was like, oh, I don't know why he has to be like this. I didn't need to be in the right lane. I can go to the left, no problem. I go in the left lane, start speeding up. So what does he do? Guns it, cuts in front of me, brakes because I let him know that the cars were going. Like, obviously, what's my first reaction? Oh, I'm furious. I'm furious. If I had a roll bar, I was going to hit this guy, but I didn't have a roll bar, thank the Lord. So what did I do? I sat there and complained about it to my wife for the next 5 minutes while we were driving. Then we get home to where our kids are, and I walk in the door and I snap at them. Right? Like, I'm not proud of that. That's terrible. But when we allow just little things like that to infiltrate our life, it starts to affect every other area as well.
It really does. And by the way, the antithesis is exactly the same. Had you just been more patient, I get it. He didn't go. And you meant well. You meant well by giving him a tap. Bunk, right? It wasn't a loud blast. Okay, so you meant well, but it wasn't received well. And as soon as it wasn't received well, you took it personal.
Yeah.
Instead of just going, whoa, I don't know what's going on. Maybe he was on his phone because he had just found out that his mom was in the hospital. Maybe he just found out that he was just fired. Maybe he just found out that something else tragic had happened. Maybe it was none of those things and he was just scrolling TikTok. But who are we to judge what that person was doing? And yet we take it personal.
You know what the worst part? As I'm driving, as like afterwards, as I'm complaining in my head, while I'm talking to my wife complaining about it, in my head, I'm sitting here because I made the comment. I was like, why does he have to be like this? And in my head, I answered that instantly going, oh, he wanted this reaction out of me. So what did I do? I kept giving him that reaction by complaining to my wife about it. I gave him exactly what he wanted.
He
He
won.
maybe it wasn't what he wanted. Maybe he was just having a bad day, like you're saying. Who knows, right? Maybe he's a jerk. Not.
He beat you. He beat you. At the end of the day, he beat you because you changed your driving habit. You changed how you were talking with your wife and you changed how you had your relationship with your children. Now watch. Now watch. You give a honk. He uses very expressive hand gestures back to you. And you now have a choice. You have a choice. You could sit here and get riled up, or you could say, all right, I see you. I see you. And he goes 5 miles an hour. Let's say he goes 5 miles an hour and you miss the light. It's frustrating, but he goes through it and you're stuck and you just got the separation you needed. The very first thing that I coach people to do is one, recognize your emotions, recognize how it biologically impacts you. Did a lot of people get a tightness of chest or their mind starts racing, their eyes get hyper focused? Oh, there's danger. You're driving. You just got hyper focused on what's in front of you and not the other vehicles around you. You put your life and those in your car and everyone else around you in danger because you allowed the biological response to get hyper focused instead of oxygenate, breathe deep, let it come in, and just be like, that guy's a jerk. Okay, great, great. He's a
Lamaze
jerk.
breathe.
Yeah, just breathe. Breathe funny. Sometimes I do that. It sounds ridiculous, but the reality is he was in control and you need to get back in control. So when that happens, recognize it, oxygenate yourself. Breathe in deep through the nose. Hold it. Do a box breath, right? In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, right? I've heard it 10, 15, 20, whatever it is. It's just a rhythmic breathing. And then begin to recognize the voice that's happening in your head. What is that voice telling you? Oh, he's a jerk. Okay. How else could you, right? You labeled him.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I labeled him, right? He's a jerk. And I was thinking about this as you're speaking. I was just thinking about relabeling that, right? To say, oh, he's a jerk, and then saying, no, Andrew, hurt people, right? It's such a cheesy little line. I've heard it 1,000 times, but truly, hurt people. And if we can just remember that and just, hey, you know what? He's not a jerk. He's going through something. I don't know what it is, but he's going through something.
You know what I found is one of the most difficult words to say in scenarios like this? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like, what if you just waved and you're like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I my bad. I'm sorry. And he could still be upset, but now you're not taking on any of that angst and frustration, right? You're not taking that onto you. And imagine how you would have turned up at home had that been a distant memory. But instead, that rumination, and you're telling your wife, all that did is it just rewired those feelings and that anger, and your body goes, pathway, great, neural pathway. Let me just make that a bigger freeway for you. And it happened
Yeah.
here instead of recognize it, breathe through it, oxygenate it, call it out, and say, how do I really want to respond here? How do I really want to respond? Do I want to respond with anger, frustration, and labels, Satan, or do I want to respond with, he is still a son of God?
Yeah. I obviously that's who I want to be, right? And I'm hoping in the future I react that way a little better. It's interesting because, if you can start to look at the person as though they're a son of God and not focus on the actions that they took, it really it comes back to the paragraph you were reading just at the bottom there. It says, when we're confronted with the challenges of mortality, and when we feel like anyone is trying to label us by our weakness, we need to stand strong in the knowledge of who we truly are. We must seek validation vertically, not horizontally. And I wasn't looking for validation. Well, I was looking for validation when I was complaining to my wife, that's for sure. But that it's a perfect example of this. Like, I don't need to sit here and get some validation for why I'm mad. I don't need to sit here and be mad at this guy over here and look vertically. It's remembering that he's a son of God, like you're saying. And at that point, it instantly makes me focus horizontally, right? Instead, I'm going vertically. When all I'm doing is just getting mad and complaining to my wife, I'm going horizontally. When I'm just getting mad at this guy over here, I'm going horizontally. But if I can remember that he's a son of God, it switches that mindset. It's just a whole change in the way that I'm processing it, and like talking about those neural pathways, it's going to create a pathway that goes vertically instead of horizontally.
It really does. Now let's change this up because this is about personal development and this is about leadership development, two different aspects or two sides of the same coin, which is easily said to become or to be better or to be high performing. When we begin to look at this from a lens of how can we treat our family more vertically and less horizontally? How easy is it for us at times to switch into this label making in our head? My kids are lazy. They didn't do their dishes. They didn't do their chores. They didn't. Doesn't mean that you just let them off the hook. But how you talk with them changes your vertical relationship with them. We think about it as a horizontal relationship, but notice as soon as we begin to introduce these God principles, it changes our relationship with them to a vertical relationship because we're calling upon God to help us in that conversation. You didn't do your chores. Well, you're grounded. You did that. I'm taking away your phone. Right? What if you could change the conversation to be more vertically minded?
Actually, I had this estate president years ago. As I was preparing to get married, I was meeting with him, and he talked about how our relationship with our spouse, and it can honestly, our kids or anybody could be included here, right? But when we look at the relationship between us and our spouse, or us and our kids and God, God's at the top, and then we're on the other two sides of this triangle, right? He drew a triangle, and he said, God's up here, you guys are right here. If you're looking vertical, if you're working towards moving closer to God, and they are as well, all you're doing is moving closer together. So if you're focused vertically, truly your relationships are just going to get better because you and whoever this person is that you're hoping to be closer with, your kids, your spouse, your employee, somebody on your team, whatever it might be, if you're all focused on that and you're focused on getting closer to God, you're just getting closer together as well.
You are. And if we are in, as he says here, our Father's beautiful plan, even his fabulous plan is designed to bring you home, not to keep you out. God is in relentless pursuit of you. How could you show up as more relentless pursuit of your wife?
Oh man, how can I show up as, with a more relentless pursuit of my wife? That's an interesting one. I feel as though, I mean, on top of the standard gospel answers, right? Or the standard answers, something that we've been focusing on recently is we come together every Saturday morning. Every Saturday morning, 7:30, it's in the calendar. Sometimes it's a little bit later. If the kids sleep in, we sleep in. But the whole purpose is it's the first thing we do Saturday morning. We sit down and we debrief the week. We discuss what went well this week and what can we improve for each other this week. Okay, you need me to work on my patience at the end when I'm hangry. Okay, I'll work on my patience when I'm hangry. And then we're really showing up for each other and we're discussing it each Saturday. That's been huge for us lately.
And that pulls you both vertically closer to God
Yeah, definitely.
because you're willing to have the conversation. Most people are not willing to have the conversation. Most people fall into the habit of labeling their spouse, labeling their best friend in negative ways. However, when we begin to think vertically of how does God see my wife? How can I treat her more like God sees her? How does God see my children? How can I treat them like God sees them? What evidence can I present to my Heavenly Father that shows I see how He sees them? Even in my very limited ability, as I focus upon those types of conversations with Heavenly Father and those types of conversations with your mom, with Becky, or with our children, with your children, as we change the way we have these conversations to be focused upon value, respect, understood, heard, when we focus upon those things, it allows God to show up more in our conversation and show up more in our relationship. That doesn't mean that everything just got better. It just means I am willing to allow Him to be at the helm. I'm allowing Him to help me be better for me. I want mom to be strong spiritually, not my responsibility. She wants me to be strong spiritually, not her responsibility. We have to do it alone, but together. We have to be willing to have those conversations. And those weekly check ins are gold,
Yeah.
gold. Yeah.
They've been phenomenal. They have completely changed our relationship. And the funny thing is not only has it become easier for us to communicate, because obviously communication in our relationships is huge, right? That's one of the pillars of high performance is like, hey, can you communicate? Can you interact with other people? What are your relationships like? Obviously, these conversations have helped with that. But one of the places that I was not expecting it to help, that it's helped big time, is when middle of the week, I'm getting irritated by something, and I sit here and go, "Do I really want to talk about this Saturday morning? Nope, really don't. Let's go ahead and change that one." And it's such a nice reminder to go, "Ooh, save myself that conversation. That's nice." And it
Because
doesn't always work that way, but I try.
you're becoming more self aware. And as high performers are very self aware. Doesn't mean they don't make mistakes. A high performer bounces back from a mistake quicker.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so cool about this talk is he sits here and he's talking about, okay, know who you are, right? Know who you are. And it's about becoming aware, exactly what you're saying. It's about finding who you are, recognizing who you are, and remembering who you are so that everything builds off of that. I mean, even here in paragraph 5, he specifically says it's insightful that the first point of doctrine that our missionaries teach is that God is our loving Heavenly Father. But every subsequent truth builds on the foundational understanding of who we are. And that's exactly what it is in high performance as well. If we have a great understanding of who we are, we can then build upon that with who we want to become. What are our goals? Where are we trying to go? What are we trying to reach? What's next for us? And if we have that solid foundation of who we are, like that quote says there, not just spiritually, but it all builds upon itself temporally as well.
It does. And it's a beautiful plan. It's a beautiful plan. Andrew, this is an incredible talk. I love that you brought this one up. I can't wait to see what next week's is going to talk about. But one of the things I think I'm most excited about as I think about this, learning about who we are, is the community that we're creating of like minded individuals. It's people that are striving to become, who want to ascend, who want to experience life more fully, but also recognize they're self aware enough to go, I don't know everything. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to grow. I'm willing to put myself out there and listen to what other ideas people have. And that's what I love about this community that we are creating of faithful followers of Christ who want to strive and ascend to become more like him in every aspect. I believe that when we understand who we are and we live from that point, that value, that we are sons and daughters of a heavenly Father who loves us and we love him, it changes and has the opportunity to change every conversation we have. My final thought here as we're wrapping up is as you were preparing to go into this next week and with all that you are, all the weight that you have on your shoulders as a father, as a husband, as a provider, what do you believe will be something that will change you from this talk? What is just, if you were to wrap up with just one thought that you had from studying this talk that's going to help you applying being a better husband and father, what is that one thing that you want to share?
It's interesting you bring that up because I actually kind of ended with one little note that I put on here. And it basically it says like we all have a purpose. We all have a purpose. God sends us to earth obviously to become like him, but we each have our own individual identity and our own purpose. And it starts with learning who you are. If you don't know who you are, start with a gratitude journal. Maybe you're not going to suddenly become or recognize or feel as though you're a son of God day one. That's okay. That's okay. Nobody expects you to have that right now. But we all have a purpose and there's a plan for each one of us. And if we can just work with the basics, no matter where we are on that scale of our purpose or our identity, or, no matter where we are on our path of discipleship, wherever you're at, just be grateful for where you're at and be grateful that you have the ability to grow. No matter where you're at, just find some things to be grateful for, and it's just going to grow from there, and it's going to help you find your identity and help you recognize the divine identity in others as well.
Thank you for sharing that. If you're still listening to this podcast, I want you to go to thehappinessbreakthrough.com/critic, CRITIC, critic, thehappinessbreakthrough.com/critic, and download our Crushing Your Inner Critic mindset, where we give you application and tools that will help you recognize who you really are. We
Definitely.
are grateful for each and every one of you and grateful for this opportunity that we each have to become, to fully ascend, to strive through trials and tribulations to become a little bit more like Jesus. I think that primary song is so appropriate. I'm trying to be like Jesus, and we want you to feel that too. Now, go out and fully ascend it.